All street cars have rubber suspension bushings in them. When you jack the car up, they tend to flex, and then when you let the car back down, they never really reset unless you really work it back and forth, jounce the car up and down, maybe even take it for a drive so that the bushings straighten back up. All we're doing is just doing a toe setting. So let's leave the car sitting on the ground. We haven't jacked it up since it's been here. Much, much better way to go. Hey guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance channel. Today we're going to be talking about setting the toe in a much simpler fashion than actually getting on the level scales and corner weighting and aligning. The reason that we can do this, what we have here is an 04 E46 M3, and the customer changed his steering rack out, and now the steering wheel is off to the right when he's driving it, and he does not have toe plates. So we're not changing camber, we're not changing caster, we're not changing anything in the rear suspension. We're going to check the front toe. So what has happened is our tie rod ends are off ever so slightly, and if they are off one way or another, your steering wheel can be off. So customer reports steering wheel is off to the right slightly while the car is going straight. So step one, let's do an initial check of the toe. So you can get these toe plates. These are Longacre plates. Lots of different companies make these. It's just basically a flat piece of aluminum. You can see they've had lots of use over the years, but you just lay it up flat against the tire, center it up front to back, and then making sure that the plate does not touch the wheel. We want to make sure that this plate is only on the tires. This one is really, really close to both, but it just clears, so we're good on that. So then we'll come around to the other side, install this one. So these kits come with really nice tape measures. It's good if you have not checked your tapes before. Sometimes these ends can get a little worn out. The reason that this moves is so if you're checking the distance on something and you're right up against it, it pushes this tab in. If you're on the back side, it's pulling it out. Kind of a tape measure trick. Look up tape measure tricks. There's kind of a neat little thing. But either way, if you haven't checked your tape measures before, I suggest you just put your foot up against there, hook them both, and just do a quick check to make sure that, say, at 15 inches, they're even. So you can see here that at 15 inches, they are dead on perfect. So making sure that you have two tape measures, it doesn't matter if they're both off, as long as they measure the same. That's all that matters. So you can see two notches in the plate. I generally attempt to go into the second notch, the higher notch, as long as you don't have any interference on the suspension underneath. So you can slide it under, hook it on that notch, and I just slip it in like that. Do this on both sides. And before you just start measuring, let's jump to the other side and make sure that these are sitting in place. These will actually have a tendency to hook like that if you're not being careful. And obviously that will throw you off about a ½ inch. So make sure that your tapes are both hooked. Make sure that it's equal front to rear. And now we're ready to check our toe on the other side. Once again, make sure that we're good front to rear. So I generally start in the back. So you can see we are right at 69 inches on the back side. And on the front side, we are right at 68.5 inches. So guys, that is a ½ inch of toe in. That is way too much for any car. We're generally looking for about an 1/8 total toe in on a street car like this. So, knowing that we have a 1/2 inch of toe in, and by the way, when you have a bunch of toe in your car, that means the leading outer edges are dragging. You will actually prematurely wear out the outside of your tire as it drags down the road. So we need to get these tires straightened up a little bit more. 1/2 inch is quite a bit. So our steering wheel, I'm going to do this behind you guys. Our steering wheel is off to the right. We know we have toe in. So the way that I envision it is I envision pulling the steering wheel back to the left, which actually straightens up our left front. And then what we want to do now is we want to toe out the right front. So all of a sudden, our steering wheel's straight, we'll toe out the right front. That's going to adjust our toe, and it's also going to straighten up our steering wheel. So let's make a quick adjustment. I'm just going to crawl underneath. It's real easy, guys. There's a jam nut that's generally a bigger wrench, and then there's adjusting wrench that will go onto the inner tie rod end. So you can just loosen up the nut. Because this is, our steering rack is on the front side of the subframe, we're going to lengthen that tie rod. Pretty simple. Sometimes you kind of have to do this kind of stuff by braille. I prefer to do it this way rather than jacking up the car, just because if you can get under here, it's no big deal, right? Sometimes you'll find that when you go to loosen your nut, it's actually kind of frozen on the inner tie rod end, and you might have to put your wrench on the tie rod end while you're loosening up the nut. But in this case, this one's behaving today, so that's a good thing. So just for fun, we know we've got a 1/2 inch of toe in. So these generally have just flats on them, 6 flats, just like any nut would. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flats. So that is one complete turn, towing out this side. I suggest that you always go ahead and tighten your jam nut back down, because it actually stretches the threads ever so slightly and can actually change the way your distance is. So now that we've made that move, what I generally do, take a good look at the steering wheel, roll the car backwards, roll the car back forwards. So guys, here's another reason to not jack the car up. All street cars have rubber suspension bushings in them. When you jack the car up, they tend to flex, and then when you let the car back down, they never really reset unless you really work it back and forth, jounce the car up and down, maybe even take it for a drive so that the bushings straighten back up. All we're doing is just doing a toe setting. So let's leave the car sitting on the ground. We haven't jacked it up since it's been here. Much, much better way to go. So let's do another quick toe setting check, before we take it for a little drive and see how close we are on the steering wheel now. Okay, let's check our other side. This might seem a little tedious. But if you don't check this and you trust it without checking it, and it gets caught like I was saying, you're gonna regret it. Okay, change number 1. So in the rear we are at 68 13/16. In the front we are at 68 5/8. So that puts us at 3/16 toe in. That is much, much closer to what we're actually looking for. However, in a real world situation, since we're not doing the entire string alignment, what I like to do is actually get out on the road, take it for a drive. Let's go see how close the steering wheel is to being straight now. So what I will do, once we get moving here a little bit, is I'll kind of straddle the center when there's not a car coming. But I never quite trust this road. Steering wheel's looking pretty good right now. We'll see. We'll get over here and we'll straddle the center a little bit. I'd say if anything, it is a teeny tiny bit to the right. Like you say, it's kind of hard on a road like this. We'll get up here to a much smoother road, see if we can get a better idea of how the steering wheel is looking. But I think we may have gotten really lucky here and kind of nailed it on the first hit. Boy guys, that is just about as straight as it can be. So I was saying that we were talking about an 1/8 inch of toe in, and we ended up with 3/16, which is only a 1/16 of an inch more. I'm kind of okay with that for a street car. In a race car, I would attempt to run it a lot straighter and maybe even have a little bit of toe out for some initial corner entry turn in. But for a street car, what do street cars mainly do? They mainly just go down straight. And when you have just a little bit of toe in, it makes the front suspension a little more friendly, and the car doesn't tend to wander near as much. So we run a little bit of toe in on a setup like this. We would do some burnouts around the roundabout. Oh yeah, this car feels really good. So going back this way, boy, it is so close. The other thing that I will do is kind of look straight ahead and don't look at the wheel. And it looks pretty close. So the next thing that I'll do is I'll actually look at the wheel and attempt to put it where I think straight is. And then let's just see what the car does. So see that? So the car's still drifting a little bit to the left. So I think what we're gonna do is we're going to try and get that 1/16 of an inch still out of the right front, because the steering wheel is off to the right ever so slightly. So we're going to pull one more 1/16 out of that right front, and then we're going to be golden. Alright guys, we're back in the shop. So we know that we took a well, we didn't go a full 1/2 inch. But we had a 1/2 inch of toe. I did 6 flats, which is 1 turn. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the jam nut up, and I'm going to go 1 more flat. And that might seem a little picky, but I want my toe perfect and I want my steering wheel perfect. So let's get that done. Then we'll take it for. Then we'll do a quick toe check, and we will go for another ride. All right, guys, you can see here's our jam nut. Here's our inner tie rod end. So we're going to slide onto here. We're going to loosen up our jam nut. We're going to tow this thing out. So we're going to grab this and go this direction. Easy to get confused. So sometimes I'll go past a little bit. You can see the boot is hanging it up a little. So what I was able to do is I was able to go past where the boot was hanging it up and then bring it back. That was one flat. That's all we're talking about. So it's not much, but it's what it takes to make it perfect. Okay. So just like before, we will roll the car back and forth, and then we'll check tow again. Another sign of a car that has a good alignment. Pretty easy to push, especially for what I would consider to be probably a pretty heavy car. It pushes pretty darn easy. So that tells you that your tires, even front to rear, are all kind of pointed in the same direction. There's a lot of drag to be had in tires that one's pointing this way and one's this way in the back, and then you've got the fronts heading a different direction. There's a lot of drag there. So this car pushes really nice. Let's do a final tow check. Well, what I hope's going to be a final tow check. How's that? Perfect. Okay, guys, here we go. 68. Boy, it is super close to 3/4. It's right in between 3/4 and 13/16, which means this one is right between 5/8 and 11/16. So that puts us right at 1/8 inch of toe in. I love it. All right, guys, quality control time. One more test drive, and I think we're gonna have it. Let's do it. Okay, guys, let's go through our tests again. Driving straight ahead, I'm looking way up the road, nice and straight. I look down, the steering wheel is straight right there. Look how nice and straight we're going. I love it. Well, guys, I hope that helped you out a little bit. We were able to take all of that tow out of just the right front, but you have to have these, and you have to have some good tape measures. And thinking about the process of why that happens and how it works out is very important. So with an 1/8 inch of toe in, we're going to have really good tire wear, and we got our steering wheel straight, so the customer will be happy about that. So onwards to the next project. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe down below, and of course, as always, if you have any questions, hit me up. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Hope you guys are doing well. Take care. This road's just got way too many bumps. It's way too crowded. Let's get out to the nice flat road. Open road. Well, not really. Topeka proper.